Wednesday morning, you've got an hour and a half to work on something. So you give yourself a task. How about the task of make my track sound better? Or a more ambitious task, write a melody of genius and work it up into an Oscar-winning score. Now, both of those are brilliant ideas, but are they really achievable? They're extremely general, and it's much more likely that you'll go, oh, that's such a crazy big idea. How am I ever going to do that? Whereas if you give yourself an achievable task, you might find that your creative juices start to flow.
Giving yourself achievable tasks is like paramount. I think it's really, really important, because otherwise I think you're just in a state of panic the entire time, which I've been in. And so have learned that achievable tasks are really valuable in terms of just moving the process on day by day, just calmly.
In a way, can alleviate a bit of stress if you are close to a deadline, is by making sure, okay, I'm going to have at least even just 2 bars bass line written by 12 o'clock today, so that I have time to do the hardest bit, or something like that. Just breaking it into bite-sized pieces that allow you to have the headspace you need to get it done, but to the best of your ability.
I think it's important not to get bogged down too much, which is what I've learned from experience. So, for example, a few years ago, I was writing a suite of 6 movements, and I had a really short space of time to write it. And then so I wrote actually a timetable of which piece I want to do on each day. So I'd work on one piece, then I'd do the next piece on the next day, etc., etc., so that I didn't get stuck, and that really helped the creative flow.
There's so many tasks in writing a piece of music, whatever style you're doing. It could be, I'm going to improve the bass line, just going to work on the ending, I'm just going to work on the hi-hat. There's so many of these things which all going to need to be done at some point, and you can do them when you feel interested in that idea.
Instead of instantly going in and just to the studio and trying to write some music, I'll go in and go, okay, today I'm just going to think about my template and what those instruments are going to be, what kind of plugins I might be using, and just really just start thinking about the world and be like, maybe I won't write any music, and that's fine. But in my head, because I'm thinking about the sounds, I am creating.
I don't think you have to write a composition in order. So if there's a bit that you think is going to challenge you and push you, stresses you out before a deadline, get that bit done first and then go back. Just breaking it into bite-sized things.
The other brilliant thing about all this is that solving one problem can often make another problem go away. So let's say you've been working on your bass line, you've simplified your bass line, suddenly your piano part doesn't sound confusing anymore, so you don't need to fix your piano part because the bass line has solved 2 problems in one. Most brilliant musicians really know how to put in the hours, they know how to work. But it was interesting talking to the composers that we've interviewed to see how they have different senses of when they're in a kind of inspired state of mind and when they're more in a kind of worky state of mind.
The first thing I would say is don't wait for inspiration. You have to be working. Picasso said this brilliant thing, inspiration happens, but it has to catch you working. So nothing is going to happen unless you are already in gear, I think. You don't just wait until the big race to run. You run every day. I work every day, and I keep toned, I suppose. And I'm sort of always alert to any little thing that happens that hasn't ever happened before.
The most magical part for me is going into a studio and hearing incredible musicians bring those notes and those ideas and music to life and hearing it recorded. That's a really cool part. But that, you know, you can't have those until you put in all that time and effort in the beginning. I work a lot off emotion, and sometimes that can be at the beginning a little feeling like a bit chaotic, but then within that chaos you then refine and tweak it, and you come to where your goal is. In terms of like composing, when I compose for film and TV, I feel like a method composer, as like method actors, like super immersing yourselves in it and almost becoming one with the project. And yeah, just really trying to get the music to really tap in and become a part of the tapestry and spirit of the show?
For me, it's the creative process is not something that happens every day. And I know there are some people who do that. They pick up their instrument or whatever and they play every day. For me, it comes in bursts of time, chunks. If I'm not inspired, I can't write. But when I get that moment of inspiration, so you have that feeling, you're going to create about going into a space, certain time every day, and the habit, the ritual. To me, it's a ritual, and that's a really important thing. So if you say you're going to start at 9, you start at 9, and you work through to 12 or whatever, and you turn off all your distractions. It's almost like a sort of meditative process.
Building something of substance takes a long time, it takes years, it's a painful process, it's not easy. You know, it took something like 7 albums for Bob Marley to become a worldwide superstar. So if it could take someone as talented and as amazing as Bob Marley, then really, if you can afford to put that work in, have the time and have the wherewithal to do it, because what you're building is a more substantial and strong.
All the different composers we spoke to had a different angle on how methodical they are. They all seem to be able to put in the hours and work hard, but they organise their time at different ways, and they, at different points in the process, are more or less methodical.
I'll put a timer on my phone and say for half an hour, I'm going to do half an hour writing, and then that's it, and I can do other stuff. So I'll do that, and that's really helpful for sort of also pushing yourself. You know, I've got to write my set kind of routine that I go through is I'll write down maybe 5 very short melodies, even if they sound really cheesy or dreadful. I'll just write them out because it's quite good to get rid of the rubbish, because you'll eventually find the good stuff.
I know that I can do 4 hours of really good work a day, but that has taken me about 15 years to sort of realise that.
I actually don't think there's much difference between writing professionally and writing when you're studying. At least that's what my experience was. I just found that I was writing a lot constantly at the time anyway when I was doing A-level music, and I try to do that now as well. Just write as much as possible, even if it's just a 2-bar idea or 30-second snippet of me singing into my phone.
I'm really only interested in working with obsessives. They're the only people who actually carry it through, really. Yeah. People who just can't think of anything they would rather be doing than this, whatever this is.
For me, it's never a mental thing. It's never like, right, I'm going to do a 1-4-5 chord thing or something. It's like you start playing, and it's like you catch, oh, that riff. Oh, I like that. Rappers talk about the flow. It's like a flow. You get into that flow, and so you have your intuition in your head, and your head plays an important part in editing and the mental side. But your intuition in the creative process, what I think is fascinating is if you follow that, your intuition can see the road ahead. I might not be able to see or understand what the final piece of music is like, but as long as I'm being guided by my intuition, I trust in that. And that's the key thing. And obviously there are moments when the mental, you know, when you have to edit, and that's a different type of, that's a different head. But in terms of the creation and the inspiration, it's all intuition. How do I feel? How does it, what's the truth there? How does it make me feel?
Well, this isn't a very glamorous topic, is it? But I do it all the time, especially on a bigger project. I know that there's certain sections perhaps that I have to have got to a sketch phase and a polishing phase. And I literally do a list and I tick them off during the day. And it makes me know how much time I'm going to need. Maybe I'll need to do a late night on Tuesday. I know, because otherwise I won't finish all the tasks that I've got before my deadline hits. It's a really good way of just keeping on track of where you are in your process.
I make lists anyway, just with to-do lists and stuff like that. But if it's a composition, you can make it into this is what needs to be done, or this is the hardest bit, I'm going to do that bit first before the deadline.
I like to try and storyboard it a little bit, try and work out what the impact point is, what the kind of punchline is, which is usually going to be the title of the song. Usually quite early in the process, though, this often changes. Something that you think was the chorus was actually the verse. But in terms of very rough planning, I think most writers will have some idea of which sections which.
So what we do is called spotting sessions, where you sit with the director, editor, producer, and we talk about the whole episode and go through it from start to finish and look at where the music will go and how long the cues will be. And that's where I take all my notes. I'll make a master cue sheet, and that'll have a lot of information, like, you know, the cue title, cue length, and then also, yeah, the kind of order of how things are happening in the story. And then visually, the master episode session. Sometimes I might want to go into the most involved cue. Maybe there's a big action sequence. Maybe I want to start with dabbling in that and then go to a smaller cue and come back. But yeah, I will definitely, yeah, I will go through and understand, like, sort of, yeah, the shape of flow, how things work. And I'll be constantly going back to that master session and comparing, like listening to a 10-minute chunk of it and seeing how does it work together.
A lot of my writing is intuitive, but I have also, when I have got stuck, or if I have a really tight deadline, I have sort of written a skeleton, whereas like, I want to have an introduction, here's the melody, I want to develop the melody here, maybe put a solo here, have some backings, repeat the melody, but with maybe change the chords, add some extra bits, you know, just really simple, and then see what happens. I don't always stick to the plan, but yeah, it's helpful.
So many different ways of working there, but the key is that all of these musicians have managed to organise their work so it sounds great, and people want to listen to it.
I like deadlines. It gives you something to aim for.
If I'm working in TV, the deadlines are really rapid. And, you know, yes, I do find myself in moments where I'm like, I don't know where to go with this. But because of the deadlines, you kind of just got to make things work. So you just have to try and try, and you might have to stay up all night. And that's just part and parcel with the fast deadlines.
The other thing I've noticed, which is very surprising to me, as my life has got busier and busier, because I'm doing all sorts of other things, politics and activism of various kinds, the time I have to work comes into rather shorter pieces. So I think, oh, Jesus, I've only got 45 minutes before I've got another meeting. And it's very interesting how the pressure of a very short amount of time forces you to just discard some of the options.
Do you ever give yourself a thing and say, I'm going to definitely finish that by lunchtime?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important, and I think deadlines and things are really, really important, and realistic deadlines. And the problem about self-imposed deadlines are that you can sort of, but if it's someone else giving you a deadline, that's always a bit more, that's always more severe. So yeah, I think deadlines are really important. But also I think part of that process saying, I'm going to work on this, you know intuitively you've got to work on it. So you work on it because you feel something's not right. If you say, I'm going to work on something and it's completely random, I'm not so sure about that. But if you follow your gut instinct, your intuition, go, this needs working on, I'm going to have this finished by lunchtime, yeah, do it. I think that's really important.
So whatever stage it is that you get into that organisational frame of mind, it's going to happen at some point. And I suppose I just want to say that that really boring word, methodical, can actually be a frame for your work. It doesn't cramp your style. It actually unlocks your creativity. And you'll find loads more interviews with these amazing artists on our channel or on our website, talking about all kinds of things that concern anyone who's writing their own music.